Hey everyone, wanted to do a quick review of the Gareth Lefty 4-inch Miura with a Harpoon Nightmare grind in M390, carbon fiber body, unique hollowed out pocket clip. So let's go over the good quickly. Action is phenomenal on this knife. Pretty much, if I wasn't doing it through the viewfinder, well, there, it's fall shut action 100% of the way. Get it past that detent and it's gonna fall, which is great. It's pretty much a Norseman. Norseman is obviously second to none for fall shuttiness, but frankly I like the action better on the Miura here just because the detent feels better to me, but that's also, different type of flipper, obviously. So that's awesome. I did not expect that. I didn't expect a fall shut action on this one. It is running on bearings. It's one of, I think like 2 or 3 at this point, Miuras that are running on bearings. So I got lucky there where when I came up on his list, he was making Miuras with bearings, so pretty cool. Another great thing would be the blade. When he first showed me a picture, I gave him free reign, basically, of this knife. I told him carbon fiber, 4-inch Lefty Miura with M390, and let him do whatever the heck else he wanted to do. And he... Oops, my camera setup just fell. He showed me a picture of this, and of the blade grind before he finished it up and polished the flats and yada yada yada. And frankly, at first I was like, that's awesome. And then I thought about some more and I thought, I fell in love with Gareth's work because they're EDC friendly and they're just so perfect for EDC. And I didn't think that a Nightmare grind would be that. And now that I have it, it definitely is. The blade stock is thinner than I thought it would be on the Miura. The Miura to me always looked like it would have thicker blade stock than this does. Frankly, it's still pretty thin, obviously. Here's a Norseman, which notoriously, especially by modern standards, is pretty thin on the blade stock, and they're pretty similar there. So I was happy with that. I was happy that the blade stock was thinner. That's one of the main reasons I liked the Chamois, is because it, again, is EDC friendly, had a thin blade stock, but I love the Miura for its looks. So I thought that kind of outweighed the EDC capabilities, but then it turned out to be quite the EDC friendly blade. Behind the edge on this hollow portion, super thin, super thin, which to me is awesome. Makes it a great slicer right here. Up here on the flats, it's a little bit thicker, but again, it's still not preposterous. It's pretty thin behind the flats here too. So you end up with a very usable blade. The grind out of Gareth's grind on this thing, the edge, I should say, was just like a typical grinder edge. It was sharp, but it wasn't, it was a wire edge. I cleaned that up, put a mirror polish on it, and as you can see, I put some scrapes on the edge as well with my Edge Pro right up here and down here. I had the blade taped at first, but the tape kept coming off, and frankly, we'll talk about it later, but the looks on this knife I can't get too hung up about. So I just gave up and just put it down directly on the Edge Pro without, I almost just cut myself, got through a first layer there, without taping it. So yeah, but the blade is phenomenal. The heat treat seems really good. I'm not like a professional as far as knowing heat treats or anything like that, but I have sharpened a lot of M390, and this definitely felt even a little bit harder than what I typically see M390 at. So to me, that's a good thing. So yeah, I'm assuming it's like 60, 61, somewhere in there, Rockwell. But yeah, excellent blade, great for EDC. Action is phenomenal. It's beautiful, truly, truly is. And one more thing that I really like, it's just a small detail. He dovetails, or I guess that's not the technical term, but puts a slant on the titanium here that the carbon fiber falls into, and that I just thought that was a cool detail. It keeps the carbon fiber in there just to another degree that the screws alone wouldn't do. So that little slant there is yeah, just a nice little touch if you ask me. So on to the negative, I think. No, one more positive. Pocket clip. I love it. I don't have anything to show it off with. Give me a second. So here would be your pants replica if I don't tear the paper towel on the way in, which I'm definitely going to do. So I'll fold it in half and hopefully that'll be sturdy enough, and do this off camera. That's what it's like in your pants. It's very deep carry, but then on top of that, which I personally don't really care, I'm not huge nitpicky on deep carry pocket clips, but it goes all the way in there, deep carry. But on top of that, the retention is just perfect. I thought this seemed a little bit flimsy from the pictures. It's definitely not. It's got good retention, but it slips in and out of my pocket, no problem whatsoever. I absolutely love the pocket clip, which Gareth is known for doing great pocket clips, but this was a new venture for him, and he definitely knocked it out of the park on this one. So let's move on to the negative now, I guess. So I hit my finger. So for me, the negative would be a couple of things. The detent, while it doesn't seem weak, like it, you know, it's definitely not particularly strong. I was actually surprised it just came out right there. I think that was mostly just vibrations, getting lucky, that knocked that out there. You know what I mean? Kind of rocking itself back and forth, that made it come out. But I mean, it's not that weak, but it's kind of weak for a detent. And I had one issue where, and this might just be, you know, something that you have to think about with front flippers that I didn't realize, even if it did have a stronger detent. But I had it in my pocket and I squatted down one day, and this has only happened once, and it kind of, you know, pressed into the bottom of my pocket, I'm assuming, because then like 15 minutes later I felt something pokey on the side of my pocket here, and the blade was halfway open and kind of stuck in the fabric of my pocket. And that's, I mean, that's never good. That's not great, but I mean, I can't really fault anybody for that. I don't think it's a, you know, tip up left carry, so it's going that way in your pocket, which is, you know, the best configuration you could have as a lefty, because there aren't many lefty knives out there. But so it's not going to go, you know, it's not going to go forward into my pocket as a lefty, and I reach my hand in this way. It's really pushing its blade into the back of the pocket, and where it can't really slide your hand in there and get that unless, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to defend it here, and I don't know if that's something I should or shouldn't be doing, because again, it's only happened once, and it was kind of a situation where I feel like that could happen to any knife. You know, you squat down and it pushes the flipper tab just right, but with the front flipper, you know, it's up here and it's kind of at the correct angle, but with the regular traditional flipper, it's not, unless you had something like a quarter that just happened to perfectly wedge itself. So I don't know, just something to think about. Another negative for me, when I got this knife, the action was good. It wasn't great, but it was good. I took it apart primarily because, and another negative would be, I had some lock stick issues when I first got it, so I wanted to take it apart and clean the lock face really well. It wasn't horrible, but I mean, the lock stick was definitely there to the extent where every once in a while I was like, okay, got to use my right hand, you know, to disengage that. So I took it apart, cleaned up the lock face, cleaned up the whole knife, and the negative associated with that was this thing was dirty. It was like comically dirty in the bearing race, and I think he uses, I mean, I'm sure he has a supplier for his bearings. That's not something that he builds himself from scratch, but in the bearing race, they look like the same type of bearings that like Forge uses. The steel cage bearings with kind of like a cup that the bearings sit inside of, you know, a U-joint on the entire circumference of the bearing. And in that like U-joint area where the bearing was sit in, the entire surface was dirty, like plainly brown and dirty. And then there was like a big clot of steel and like steel flakes and dirt in between two of the bearings. And I rinsed the absolute hell out of it, and again, this action that I keep hitting my finger on is because I'm trying to do it in camera here, but the action is definitely, you know, obviously very flippy. Again, it was just caked with dirt. I cleaned it out, and immediately this thing became very fall shutty. You might have just heard that one little bit of lock stick. That's like once in a blue moon. I was using my right hand to disengage that, but that wasn't a necessity. Every once in a while you hear it, but it's completely cleared itself up to where it's not a problem. The lock stick is never a problem. Every once in a while you hear it, but it doesn't stick, which is fine by me. I think that's just the lock stick issue is just a part of having titanium on steel. I don't think that's ever not going to be a thing. People say, you know, some knives don't have lock stick that are that way, and maybe they just got it perfect directly out of the factory, but from my experience, everything that's got titanium on steel, it's going to have some lock stick to begin with. Some knives, it never goes away, like my Spyderco Nirvana, but this one, I mean, it was a long time. It was like a couple of weeks of actually using the knife and flipping it like a maniac before the lock stick actually, you know, completely faded. But it's gone now, so not really a talking point, to be honest. And then the other major negative and the unfortunate part about this knife is I got it out of the box and I was like, or out of the bag really, and I was like, wow, that's gorgeous. And I turned it around and I immediately wanted to see what the backspacer was. He never showed me an angle of that, so I turned it to the backspacer and I saw, I don't know if you can see it or not, but this pretty significant chip in the titanium and the carbon fiber. I sanded the carbon fiber down because it was kind of flaking out and I didn't want it to become a bigger issue than it was, but pretty significant chip there that unfortunately wasn't me. Again, I use my knives. I have no problem with scratches on the blades, but I don't drop my knives, so that was quite the bummer. And I did message Gareth immediately and said, hey, you know, I don't know if this left your shop this way or what. And while I messaged him, or directly after I messaged him, I looked at the packaging, and there's no way that happened, you know, in transit, unfortunately. It was packaged well. You know, it was completely wrapped in bubble wrap, and I didn't think about that when I messaged him. Yeah, there was no way it could have happened in transit. And he messaged me saying, I don't know when that happened. I'm so sorry. This is a special build for me. And I believe him, it totally was a special build for him, I think. He had a lot of firsts, this pocket clip, the Harpoon Nightmare grind. It was a long time coming for me. One on bearings, which again, he only has a couple Miuras on bearings at this point. So I know it was a special build for him, and he offered to fix it. He's like, send it back to me, I'll fix it. I didn't respond to him immediately. I just ran onto DHL's website, which is the shipping provider that he uses, and kind of looked up prices to think about it, and I mean, if I remember right, and maybe I was doing the research incorrectly, I've never used DHL, but if I remember right, it was like $100 to ship it to South Africa, and I'm not the type of guy to, you know, ship you something, have you do work for free, and then ship it back for free, despite the fact that, I mean, it obviously shouldn't have come with that, but that's just not how I roll. So I would have, you know, then sent him money to send it back to me, or otherwise I would have felt bad that he was losing money on the knife, and it becomes not worth it at that point, and which is unfortunate. But long story short, it's a great knife. I absolutely love it for EDC use. Fit and finish, barring that, is phenomenal. The fact that it was dirty is just, I mean, to me, because I don't have a problem taking my knives apart, is kind of comical. There was like a mark on the inside of the titanium, and again, this isn't a negative to me at all. He had taken like a scribe line and put his, now I can't think of the darn word, caliper. Put his caliper in one of the screw holes on the inside of the titanium and did a line here, and then put one on this, did a line here, and centered it out. And I don't know what he was finding, but I'm assuming it was the exact center point between those two screws, and that's where he, you know, lined up the carbon fiber and the titanium. But I thought that was kind of cool. Personally, I think it's cool. It's, you know, it's a handmade knife. It's a custom knife. It's going to have, you know, some things like that, I guess, which I personally don't see issue in. I know the more astute of you may be staring at this grind and thinking, well, this edge is a little wavy on this side, and I'm only pointing it out because I don't care. It's a handmade knife. It's ground by hand. That's, you know, that's totally fine by me. It just gives it some character, if you ask me. So would I buy from Gareth again? Happily. My only conundrum is I don't know which model I'm going to pick up next, you know. So I wish his books were open so I could grab another custom, or, well, they're all custom, but another, you know, custom built to my specifications knife. But pretty much every drop I lust over his knives and almost get them. So I'm sure I'll end up with another at some point. And yeah, enough rambling once again. Long and over talkative review, but I think it's definitely worth the price. His knives are, Jesus Christ, I hit my tripod. Dork. That's what happens when you switch hands at the end of the review. And by tripod, I mean like this base that I have my phone taped to. The prices are great. I'm not going to say what I paid because that's not really, you know, worth talking about, but if you get a custom knife for the price that he sells them for, you're getting a steal, if you ask me. So I'm happy with it, and I'll definitely be getting another Gareth Bull at some point in the not too distant future.